president is doing this now after 1 month in office, and I think you can expect that he is going to go around that table and ask all of his cabinet secretaries to give him an update on what they have done so far since he has taken office. He wants to hear the positives. He wants to hear all of the good things they have done, list the accomplishments, also talk about the work that he has done. We saw that in his first term, where the cabinet secretaries used these meetings to praise his leadership. I think you'll see a lot of that today. But the administration says that this is a focus for all of the department and agency heads to look at waste, fraud, and abuse. So, Diane, I think you'll hear that phrase repeated by all of the cabinet secretaries today, because they know that's what the president wants to hear, what they're doing to root that out and do streamlining across the federal government right now.
So, Jay, what do lawmakers want to see happen in this cabinet meeting?
We've seen some lawmakers come back here to the Hill in recent days because they were on recess last week with additional questions about DOGE. So expect them to watch, frankly, the same feed we're watching of this cabinet meeting as it comes out across the nation from cameras inside the room for little understandings of what DOGE is going to do next, because there are lawmakers who will privately tell you they are not being read in on this process at all. And publicly, they're saying that Elon Musk needs to, A, give them a little bit more clarity, and B, give them a little bit more understanding of how DOGE will act in a compassionate way, is the phrase some lawmakers continue to use, because they are worried about the severity of some of these cuts to various federal agencies and, frankly, the impersonal nature that some of these cuts have been done with. Again, it's unclear if they're going to get some of those answers, and it's unclear if the pressure that some of these members got in their districts over the recess when there were fiery town halls has really pushed them to be against DOGE or to even be quizzical of DOGE in some ways. But certainly the general sense up here on Capitol Hill is that members want at least a little bit more clarity out of Elon Musk's next moves.
Karen, Trump says his cabinet members are extremely happy with Musk, but some of them just basically told their workers to ignore Musk's demands for their weekly accomplishments. So how is this expected to play out? Is this expected to be tense or awkward at all?
I don't know if it will come up in the conversations that the cabinet secretaries will have when they're talking to the president and presenting what their agencies and departments have done. Where it might come up is when reporters start shouting questions in the room and directing them at the president and Elon Musk and asking about some of the pushback that cabinet secretaries have been giving to those directives from Elon Musk about the 5 things email. Some agency heads saying, don't respond to this. Others saying it's voluntary. But still a lot of confusion about what would actually happen and who has the authority if people don't respond, who can actually fire somebody. It's also notable that on the DOGE website, there is a tracking system for what these agencies are doing right now to get more efficient. It's almost like a leaderboard, if you will, of the cabinet secretaries about the work that DOGE wants to see them doing. So those are the same people that Elon Musk will be sitting in the cabinet room with. That will be also something we'll be looking to see if it comes up, because again, that work, waste, fraud, and abuse, is going to be a big focus today in that cabinet meeting.
Jay, how much is DOGE expected to feature in this cabinet meeting?
We expect, just given Elon Musk's presence, that it's going to be a focal point, frankly, of this meeting. A, because the various heads of agencies that Elon Musk has tried to cut and has set additional goals to cut are going to be in there, as you and Karen were just talking about at length. Also, Elon Musk is going to be in there. Also, reporters are going to be in there. And there are those with a lot of questions, as I was just saying, including lawmakers here on Capitol Hill, especially some prominent lawmakers even, who've got a lot of questions as to how this DOGE process is being played out. And so they're trying to get some answers and read the tea leaves, if you will, based on what they see out of this cabinet meeting.
Karen, we're also going to see Secretary of Education Linda McMahon. Now, she's been tasked with dismantling the agency she's leading. So do you think she'll shed any more light on how that'll work?
We'll see if the president puts her on the hot seat today when the cameras are in the room. Remember, the cabinet meeting will likely continue after reporters leave. We'll get a good glimpse of this, maybe a very long photo opportunity, but the meeting will likely continue. But she could be on the hot seat about what she has done so far and what her plans are for an agency that the president has said he would like to see shut down. Now, it's notable then you're getting put in charge of something that ultimately would be dismantled, but we'll see what she says about that today and what her plans would be in the near future.
All right, Karen Travers, Jay O'Brien, thank you. And we will bring you that cabinet meeting live when it happens. Ukraine's President Zelensky is pushing back on President Trump's claims the war in Ukraine will end soon. Zelensky says Trump will face a lot of challenges with Putin because the Russian leader doesn't want the war to end. This as the U.S. and Ukraine are set to sign a key deal to share profit from Ukraine's natural resources in exchange for military support. Zelensky says right now the deal contains no security guarantees, but he wants to discuss more with President Trump. ABC's Patrick Revel's in Kyiv, Ukraine, with more. Patrick, what's the latest on Zelensky's trip to Washington?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, our understanding from this press conference that we were at earlier with President Zelensky is that he still hopes to go to Washington this week to sign this minerals deal that has now been agreed upon by the U.S. and Ukraine. But, you know, we understood originally it was going to be on Friday. We'd heard that from both sides. But I have to say, during this press conference, President Zelensky seemed a little less certain. He said that both sides are discussing it, that he hopes he will go and meet with President Trump. But he did not say that it was 100%. He did say that he hopes to talk with President Trump about what kind of security guarantees the U.S. might be willing to give. How does President Trump see this war ending? And because, you know, this deal that's been agreed, this minerals deal, does not contain any real concrete security guarantees. Instead, it's just about basically the U.S. investing in Ukraine's mineral resources, basically. And I think what was important also from President Zelensky was he said that when he spoke with President Trump, when he meets with him, he hopes that he will find out from him even whether American aid is going to continue. He says right now there's no freeze on American aid, that it continues, but he said that's one of the things he'd like to talk about. And I think what that speaks to is quite how uncertain in many ways Ukraine is about President Trump's position on this. As you say as well, you know, when we were there, I asked him whether he agreed with President Trump's position that it could take weeks to end the war and whether that was realistic or not. And President Zelensky basically said he didn't think it was possible. He said it would be very, very difficult, mainly because he believes that President Vladimir Putin doesn't really want to end the war and will put up a lot of challenges to President Trump. And most of all, he believes that without security guarantees, there can be no real ceasefire here in Ukraine, Diane.
And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says officials are meeting tomorrow to discuss normalizing operations between the U.S. and Russian embassies. What are you watching for there?
Yeah, Diane, so this is a meeting that we understand mostly from the Russian side that basically more sort of mid-level diplomats from both officials from both countries, you know, foreign ministries and national security departments, basically department heads, are going to meet in Riyadh and discuss basically restoring diplomatic relations. You remember, of course, there was this huge breakthrough meeting in Riyadh more than a week ago now between the Foreign Minister Lavrov, Marco Rubio, as well as President Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. And after that, both sides agreed basically to restore relations, to restore their embassies, which are both operating on skeleton staff because over the years they were cut down basically through repeated cycles of tit-for-tat expulsions, and they'd reached rock bottom after the war in Ukraine here. But obviously that round of talks sparked deep alarm here in Ukraine and among European allies because people felt that Ukraine was being excluded from potentially from talks ending the war. I think we don't know how much Ukraine will figure in these discussions tomorrow. Both the Russians and the Americans are primarily saying that these are kind of sort of preliminary consultations to restore relations. And then once they have had those meetings, we expect to have another round of higher level meetings, likely between, again, the Secretary of State and the Foreign Minister. But we don't know a great deal yet about what these talks will look like. And it's something to watch, I think, very closely tomorrow, Diane.
All right, Patrick Revel, thank you. And the FAA is investigating a close call on a Chicago runway. A Southwest flight had to abort landing when a small jet crossed the runway. Authorities say it appears the pilot of the private jet disregarded commands from air traffic control. Transportation correspondent Gio Benitez has the latest.
Yet another near catastrophe at an American airport. This time, a private business jet crossing directly in front of a Southwest 737 seconds from touchdown. Watch again, the Southwest jet making its final approach when the pilots notice that private jet entering the runway. The crew aborting the landing feet from the runway.
Southwest 2504 going around.
The Southwest plane pulling up, clearing that private jet by just 250 feet. The pilots asking what went wrong.
Tower Southwest 2504, how'd that happen?
Moments before the near collision, air traffic controllers telling the business jet not to enter the runway. The pilot even reading back the command.
Section 560 negative. Cross runway 31 left. Hold short runway 31 center.
If this had been a cloudy day, if there had been fog on the runway, if the Southwest crew hadn't been so alert and seen this aircraft crossing the runway, this could have been a terrible, terrible tragedy.
Southwest passengers Kaylee Mask and Emily Novak were on a girls' trip.
I was kind of anxious about flying because there's been so many, crashes and things happening with the planes.
We're just really, really thankful for the pilot that we had and his reaction and the training that he had to keep us all safe.
There have been more than 60 serious near collisions at U.S. airports since 2021. Many airports across the country still lack technology to prevent them.
The FAA needs to increase its funding and increase deployment of the kinds of capabilities and technologies that will prevent these kinds of incidents from happening again.
And I've got to tell you, the biggest question I've been getting is what's happening at American airports? And the honest truth is we just don't know. And that's exactly why it's so critical that the FAA investigates each and every one of these incidents to find trends, because just a month ago, we saw the terrible cost of a mistake. Diane.
All right, Gio Benitez, thank you. Let's bring in transportation reporter Sam Sweeney for more on this. Sam, what's next in this investigation?
Well, the NTSB is going to interview all the pilots involved. They're going to pull the black boxes from both of those planes. And they want to understand what was taking place inside the cockpit of that business jet. Why did that pilot not follow the orders of air traffic control, despite acknowledging the order to hold short of that runway, that center runway where that Southwest Airlines pilot and plane were landing at that same time? Was he distracted? Were there cell phones involved? Was there something wrong with the radio? Was he worried about a control? They will try to figure all of that out, and they will be able to do that using the black boxes and those crew interviews.
Sam, what goes into determining whether disciplinary action is appropriate here?
Look, there's going to be a number of things that they're going to look at. And, you really have to have gross negligence, intentional negligence to have your pilot's license suspended or permanently taken away. It is rare. It could happen. They're going to have to look at all of the facts of this case to determine how they proceed.
And Sam, we are still in the middle of an ongoing air traffic control shortage. Does that appear to have played any role here based on what we know so far? And what do we know about what's being done to help that?
Right now, it doesn't appear that the air traffic control shortage had anything to do with this. Air traffic control told that pilot not to cross that runway, told them multiple times. That pilot read back that command but still crossed over. This appears to be a cut and dry case of pilot error. As far as the air traffic controller shortage goes, that's going to take a number of years to get fixed because it takes so long to hire and train air traffic controllers, sometimes up to 4 years. So it's not a quick fix, but the administration has said they are dedicated to this. They want to pump out more people through the air traffic control training program. But again, it's still going to take a number of years before we're fully staffed.
All right, Sam Sweeney, thank you.
Thank you.
And a Texas measles outbreak has turned deadly. A hospital spokesperson says a patient at Texas Tech in Lubbock has died, marking the first reported death since the outbreak started last month. Texas health officials say the patient was an unvaccinated school-aged child. And health officials say they've now linked 124 cases to that outbreak in West Texas, 34 more cases since they reported last Friday. Coming up, 3 American women found dead at a Caribbean resort, what authorities say was in their hotel room.
The news never stops.
From Tampa, we are here tonight as Hurricane Milton has just made landfall.
The surge just keeps coming up.
Right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
We're in artillery position about 2 miles away from Gaza.
And ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
We're not far from where this rally took place, so just stick with us here.
Traveling with the president to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Here in London today.
Off the coast of Gaza.
Downtown Tel Aviv, rockets or missiles coming in.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii. Some areas are still smoldering.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines.
The ruins of Rafah.
From the FBI.
Reporting from Capitol Hill.
In western Portugal. Outside of Mexico City.
In Iceland.
Let's go.
Here in France.
The eclipse across America.
Just stunning.
Unbelievable.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere because the news never stops.
It started with
Getting that golden ticket today.
Good luck on out the golden ticket.
Will change my life.
I know you're nervous.
Show me a place where dreams come true.
I've never seen anything like it. You're going to Hollywood.
My dream came true.
There are surprises in every person.
Where dreams come true.
My wife wanted to be seen as the perfect mom, so she created a YouTube channel.
A Mormon happy family, but only what we wanted to show them.
Weird things started happening. Ruby said the children were demonically possessed. That blew the powder keg.
I'm still recording.
Ruby has crossed a line of abusive to psychotic.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, we have breaking news in the Mendez brothers case. California Governor Gavin Newsom is asking the parole board to launch an investigation into whether the brothers pose an unreasonable risk to the public if released. That could be the first step in commuting their sentences. The brothers have spent nearly 30 years in prison for killing their parents. And an investigation is underway after 3 American tourists mysteriously died on vacation in Belize. 3 women in their 20s were found dead in their hotel room with no signs of injury. Now their families are speaking out. ABC's Trevor Ault has the details.
The urgent investigation into the mysterious deaths of 3 American women found dead in their hotel room on a girls' trip at this luxury resort in Belize.
We knew something was going on because we saw the ambulances, we saw the police.
Police say 23-year-old Kutar Nakad, 24-year-old Iman Mallah, and 26-year-old Wafay El Arar were staying at the Royal Kahal Beach Resort. Surveillance footage shows them entering their room Thursday and never leaving. The hotel manager says housekeeping got no response Friday, and they entered Saturday with a master key.
The bodies exhibited no signs of injuries.
Belizean authorities say alcohol and gummies were found in the room, but they're testing for carbon monoxide and other possibilities.
We're at a stage where we cannot definitively see what the cause of death is.
And family and friends in their Massachusetts community tell ABC affiliate WCVB they're stunned.
They were so loved and cherished in this community. It's a tragedy.
And Diane, police in Belize say there are some signs these women got sick or maybe even overdosed, but they're not certain, and autopsies are now underway. The State Department, meantime, says they're monitoring the situation very closely, and they're in touch with local authorities. Diane.
All right, ABC's Trevor Ault, thank you. And prosecutors are considering murder charges in the so-called romance scam on steroids. The FBI says Aurora Phelps orchestrated the most sinister romance scam they've ever seen. Now they're investigating whether her victims' deaths were an accident or intentional, as her husband says she's not capable of such a crime. ABC's chief national correspondent Matt Gutman has the details.
The FBI is investigating whether Aurora Phelps, the suspect behind what authorities are calling a romance scam on steroids, wasn't just after her victims' money, but their lives too.
Does the FBI believe that she intended to kill them by drugging them, or that was just part of how she was able to get the money out of them?
If you have 1 or 2 victims, maybe there's, an accident. In the 20 plus years I've been in the FBI, you start to rack up number of victims and the number of bodies. You certainly start to suspect and want to look into, is there more nefarious intent?
Authorities say Phelps would lure older men in their 60s and 70s on dating apps, drug them, steal their identities, then their money, buying gold coins, plane tickets, hotel rooms, motorcycles. She would even kidnap them, says the FBI.
We believe Aurora Phelps deliberately drugged someone in the United States, put him on a plane with her, flew to Southern California, and then put him in a wheelchair and pushed him physically across the U.S.-Mexico border, then got on another plane, went to Mexico City, checked him into a hotel room, and we know that that victim was later found dead a few hours later.
She's been indicted on 21 counts, including kidnapping leading to death. The FBI says her alleged crime spree dates back to at least 2019.
Certainly actual losses, likely in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and intended losses, millions of dollars.
That as her husband, William Phelps, telling the LA Times that his wife was on the phone a lot, and he now wonders what she was doing. We've known each other for 14 years, he said, and she's never shown a sign or an ounce of this. If she did do it, damn, she put one over on me. Diane, the FBI is asking any additional victims to come forward, but tells me victims may be too ashamed about what happened or too drugged to remember much at all. They fear other victims might not be alive. Now, Phelps could face life in prison if convicted on all counts, but we're told she might fight extradition from Mexico, a process that could take months. Diane.
All right, Matt Gutman, thank you. Coming up, countdown to the Oscars. What fun stunts host Conan O'Brien might have up his sleeve when we come back.
The news never stops.
We are here in Israel, a nation at war.
We appeared to be gunfire. The former president rushed off the stage.
Hurricane Helene ravaging the coastline of Florida.
It's moving really fast, screaming across the state.
And that's why ABC News Live never stops.
Taking you to the center of the story.
As news breaks live.
We hear those small arms fire around us.
We're right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
ABC News Live is there for you at the start of your day, all morning live.
ABC News Live, right there, as events unfold across the day. ABC News Live, breaking down the day's top stories.
Lyle and Eric Mendez, there is new evidence in this case.
ABC News Live Prime going there, wherever the story is.
Are you going to build it back up?
And ABC News Live lighting up the weekends.
With breaking news and all the latest pop headlines.
Happy Oscars Sunday.
A lot to watch for tonight.
ABC News Live.
Because the news never stops.
Now you can listen to a podcast version of This Week, available free wherever you listen.
My father was my hero. To millions, he was Superman. I idolize and miss a different Christopher Reeve, Dad. I've waited 30 years to do this and share the experience with my father.
Tonight on ABC.
Attention teachers, no child is to be sent to the principal's office today. Kids, if you want to do crime, now's the time. Happy first day of school. Yes!
Weren't there like 4 more of these?
Yeah, we were robbed.
Hey, buy 3, get 1 free.
I'ma call your mother on you. Bring the rest back here, boy.
ABC's David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. More Americans watch World News Tonight with David Muir than any other newscast.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, just 4 days until the Oscars. First-time host Conan O'Brien is promising a show like no other. From surprise moments to unpredictable stunts, he says anything can happen. ABC's Lara Spencer sat down with him to talk about his plans, last-minute changes, and some hidden talents we might see from Conan himself.
Can you share with us any secrets of this year's Oscars?
I'm just going to keep popping in and just yell, "Host!" And I think that's going to remind people, first of all, it's going to be very jarring.
Yeah.
And upsetting.
Keep us awake.
Yeah, but like during someone's emotional speech when they've just won and they're saying a beautiful thing about their grandmother who believed in them, and I lean in, "Host!" Jarring, upsetting, probably a bad idea.
New, though, something new.
But new. I don't care if my ideas are bad ideas. I care that they're new and you haven't seen it before.
I like
You know
this.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling a giant cobra,
Yeah.
you know,
For no
the
reason.
first time on stage.
Yeah.
Hasn't been done.
No.
I'm going to do it. So I want people to be watching thinking there's a good chance he doesn't survive the night.
Here we are 4 days out.
4 days to go, no pressure. I mean, there's a ton of pressure, but I don't feel it because I take a lot of different medications. And so I don't feel anything right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I have a big, happy grin. Yeah, we are 4 days out, and we've been working really hard. I have an amazing team of writers. We have been going through tons of ideas, and I'm excited because I grew up watching the Oscars, and it is something that's imprinted on my memory.
So this is something you dreamed of as a kid, or you wouldn't even dare to dream of this moment?
I dreamed of like being a seat filler at the Oscars. I never thought, oh, I'll host the Oscars. I always kept my dreams very attainable.
Yeah. Do you have Oscar memories that stand out to you as a kid?
Well, the memory that I remembered, I was watching this when a streaker, during the streaking craze, when a streaker ran through, and David Niven had a great ad lib.
Probably the only laugh that man will ever get in his life is by stripping off and showing his shortcomings.
And of course, I didn't understand the joke at the time. I don't think. Still don't.
So if you had a Mount Rushmore of Oscar hosts, who would be on it?
Well, the Mount Rushmore of hosts, Bob Hope, Johnny Carson, Steve Martin, Billy Crystal. I think Jimmy Kimmel has done a really nice job with the Oscars, and Jimmy and his wife Molly have been really nice to me about sharing their tips. You know, look out for this, try and do that, make sure you do X, Y, Z. Probably all a trap, sabotage, but done with warmth.
Okay, are you going to sing or dance, yes or no?
You never know with Conan. I'm like Anne Margaret. I'm a triple threat. Now, I know a lot of young people are watching. You don't know who Anne Margaret is, so I'll change it up again. I'm like Selena Gomez. I sing, I act. Okay, I just brought it into the present. You never know what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
You know, I can sing, I can dance, I can do close-up magic. I'm a contortionist. You don't know what I'm gonna do.
No.
Anything can happen at any time.
It sounds like it might.
I can dislocate both of my shoulders and have my arms fall off, and I might do it. You have to stay glued the entire show. You don't know what I'm gonna do.
If you could have been in any one of the major movies that's likely to win awards, which of these Oscar contender movies do you wish that you could have had a role in?
I would say it would be fun to be in Conclave, because I would love to, you know, wear the clothing, and then I'd like to cast my ballot, and then I'd like to scurry down a hallway, but then I'd like to have a giant piece of veal parmesan and a whole bunch of red wine, and I mean a lot of red wine.
If you would be willing to give us a GMA exclusive, just one thing to tell our audience that is going to happen, that only Conan knows.
I am going to go into the audience, and I'm going to shave Stanley Tucci's chest.
Has he consented?
He has not consented. He's heard about it, and he said no, but I'm going to still do it.
Okay.
And I'm going to see that he's restrained.
Thank you.
All right, big thanks to Lara Spencer for that. You can watch the 97th Academy Awards this Sunday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. on ABC. I'm Diane Macedo. The news never stops, and neither do we. We have a lot more news right after the break. Stay with us.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed.
Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas,
Edinburgh, Scotland.
From Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home? We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City.
Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation. You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Raleigh, North Carolina. The U.S. Capitol. Mayfield, Kentucky.
Minneapolis.
Mexico. Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
Getting you behind the stories as they happen, giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live. Streaming free right now wherever you stream your news.
They're violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy. Let's get this done.
Being a cop is stressful. 24/7.
Every year on the job is different. You never really stop being a rookie.
Because if we lose control, bad things happen.
Work smarter, not harder.
The road to the Oscars is heating up the mornings on GMA. The stars, the style, all the inside buzz on Hollywood's biggest night.
We are on the road to the Oscars.
Every morning, the countdown is on. No one does the Oscars like Good Morning America.
Hey, good morning, America.
Good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Reporting from Bourbon Street in the aftermath of the New Year's truck attack, I'm Trevor Ault. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, you are looking at the White House on this Wednesday. And a month into President Trump's term, some border agents say his executive order on immigration appears to be working. They say migration to the U.S. has significantly slowed. The Department of Homeland Security is also reporting apprehensions have slowed. ABC's Matt Rivers is in Mexico City. Matt, how significant is this slowdown?
It's stunning, Diane. There's no other way to put it, really. The amount of people arriving to the U.S. southwest border has plummeted since the peak months that we saw, let's say, 18 months ago. We did start to see the numbers significantly slow down when President Biden was still in office, thanks to pretty intense restrictions that his administration had put into place. But President Trump taking that even further, essentially cutting off any chance at applying for asylum at the U.S. southwest border. Also, when you look at the people coming up from the south, you look at the Darien Gap, which is that land bridge between Colombia and Panama. It's a stretch of jungle that anybody wanting to walk from South America to North America must go through. The number of people that the Panamanian government has registered going through that jungle gap has plummeted to the lowest level that we've seen since February of 2021, when we were right in the middle of the pandemic. So by any metric you look at this, people have stopped arriving for the most part at the U.S. southwest border.
Now, you say thousands of migrants are even giving up mid-journey, right? They're already on their way, and then they're going back home before they ever even reach the border. What does that tell you?
Yeah, there were a lot of migrants that had essentially become stuck here in Mexico during the Biden administration. They were waiting for their asylum claims to be processed by using this application on their smartphones that the Biden administration had set up. But Trump basically canceled that, in addition to all the other restrictions he's put into place. And so what we're now seeing is this new phenomenon called reverse migration. Essentially, you've got people from, let's say, Venezuela, Colombia, the two biggest immigration hotspots over the last few years, coming all the way to Mexico, and essentially now looking around at the landscape and saying, you know what, it's not worth it to stay here. I don't want to run the risk of deportation. I know the Trump administration is not going to let me in. Therefore, they're making the very difficult decision to return home. President Trump, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his policies or not, it has to be said that if his goal here is to curb irregular migration to the United States, he is wildly succeeding at that.
All right, ABC's Matt Rivers in Mexico City. Thank you. And the Trump administration is appealing a federal judge's order to repay millions of dollars in foreign aid to nonprofit groups. The president signed an executive order freezing all foreign aid on his first day in office. The judge issued a temporary restraining order allowing the aid to continue. But yesterday, that judge ruled the administration violated the court's terms by not unfreezing the funds. The judge ordered the administration to pay the nonprofit groups by midnight tonight. Now a top official says the administration can't pay, and Elon Musk is suggesting the judge be impeached. Let's bring in senior reporter Catherine Falders for more. Catherine, what's the status of this foreign aid now, and why is the administration saying they can't comply with this order?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what the judge ordered is essentially $2 billion worth in payments to be dispersed and paid by 11:59 tonight. Now, what we're learning, the latest, is the Trump administration says that can't be accomplished. They essentially say that fulfilling the payments is not only technically impossible, but would also prevent the Trump administration from ensuring these payments are legitimate. Now, the person who's saying this is a man by the name of Peter Morocco. He's the deputy administrator at USAID and the director of foreign assistance at the State Department. He said complying with this court order would require dispersing $1.5 billion between 2,000 payment requests at USAID and then an additional $400 million in payments at the State Department. Now, he's saying the system that makes those payments doesn't really allow for that. But the reality of this is there's lots of questions about why it doesn't allow for that. We know that Elon Musk and DOGE went into various different agencies and in some cases broke that system or prevented that payment system from not working. So this could be a problem that they created themselves. Now, we'll see what the judge says in terms of why they can't make these payments, if they still have to make these payments. But right now, at least the administration is saying that it just can't happen by midnight.
Catherine, meanwhile, another federal judge is blocking President Trump's executive order suspending the federal refugee resettlement program. What's the latest on that case?
Yeah, so this lawsuit that was originally filed essentially argues that Trump's executive order contradicts the system that was set up by Congress to allow refugees to come into the United States. Remember, on day one of this administration, Trump issued sweeping actions on immigration. So this one in particular that's being challenged calls for this 4-month suspension of refugee resettlements. And then, of course, it directs the removal of asylum seekers who don't meet the requirements to seek asylum, according to the administration. So that's where where that stands right now. This federal judge has temporarily blocked that again. This is all in the early stages. It's a temporary block, but it does show how across the country, many of Trump's, if not all of them, Trump's immigration actions are being challenged by various different groups and being blocked, at least on a temporary basis, by various different federal judges.
And Catherine, the president's also revoking the security clearance for a law firm representing the former special counsel who investigated Trump. How significant is that?
It's extremely significant. It's in the form of a presidential memorandum, not an executive order. But what he's doing is stripping a security clearance of one of the top lawyers for Jack Smith. Now, you know, Trump has often threatened to investigate people who he believes are his political opponents. He believes Jack Smith is a political opponent. He's not. He's a career prosecutor. But it's sent a chilling effect across the legal community, because what this does is essentially say to law firms, we are going to punish you based on the clients that you represent. And I think it's worth noting that 3 of Trump's top defense attorneys who represented Trump in that case, in the classified documents case, they all had security clearances, and those security clearances were granted by the Biden administration. So what this says is that it's a purely political move. It's retaliatory by President Trump, and he at least essentially noted that we could see more of this in the future directed at law firms, solely because he just doesn't like the clients who some lawyers are representing.
All right, Catherine Falders, thank you. And federal job cuts are raising concerns about staffing at America's national parks. Travelers and experts say they're worried layoffs could impact upcoming vacations, especially during the summer and spring break. ABC's Ariel Reshef has that story.
As millions gear up to spend spring break at some of the nation's most treasured parks, from Yosemite to the Grand Canyon, a warning from park officials that the deep government job cuts could have a noticeable impact on your experience.
The visitors are not going to be able to do the things they want. You know, if you want to bring your family to Yosemite and can't camp, or it takes 4 hours to get into the park, what kind of experience is that?
Nearly 1,000 park employees were laid off on Valentine's Day, and some ripple effects are already being felt, from longer lines to cut hours to closed visitor centers and canceled tours.
We had an experience for 10 options. We only did like 4.
The National Park Service says more than 325 million people visited these sites in 2023, up 4% from the year prior. But now officials say the staffing shortages will make keeping the areas pristine and visits running smoothly more challenging.
In my mind, it's a crisis. If it's the employees that are gone, I'm not sure how the park could stay open.
Some travelers and local businesses are bracing for a spring shakeup.
Businesses that are here in Baker certainly rely on tourism and travelers. So we're unsure what that's going to look like this season.
I was on lunch on February 14th and got a call from my supervisor and just had to be out and done by 5 p.m. And so it was a mad dash.
Ben Shreves is one of the park employees who recently lost his job.
People were working overtime to provide the best experience. And they were already struggling to do that. And part of that was just a lack of resources. And so now it's just like they have even less of that.
Experts say if you're planning to traverse the parks this spring, to be patient and over-prepare.
There's going to be a big imbalance between the number of people who are going to the parks and the amount of staff that can help them.
Now, the Park Service has about 20,000 employees. The Trump administration has rolled back some of those firings and says it will hire 3,000 seasonal workers. In the meantime, if you're planning to vacation at a national park, prepare for a slightly different experience. Diane?
Noted. Ariel Reshef, thank you. And 2 major cruise lines are implementing new rules that could impact spring break for young travelers. Both Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Lines have updated policies on the minimum age for solo passengers sailing from U.S. destinations. ABC's Gio Benitez has more.
Hey there, Carnival Cruise Line is making a big change to its policy. Similar to Royal Caribbean, both cruise lines say that solo travelers now must be 21 and over, or they need to have a guardian. And that guardian needs to be at least 25 years old on Carnival. So a big heads up for college students who may be planning a getaway. That guardian does not need to be a legal guardian, so keep that in mind. The company putting the policy in place this month, saying this was part of its commitment to safety. So when booking a cruise, always make sure to check those policies on age for booking and staying solo in a cabin, or you could be denied boarding. And Carnival is now saying that if you try to board by yourself and you're under 21, you will not get your money back. Diane?
All right, Gio Benitez, thank you. Coming up, the new study on the Mediterranean diet and its possible impact on cancer risk. Stay with us.
The news never stops.
From Tampa, we are here tonight as Hurricane Milton has just made landfall.
The surge just keeps coming up.
Right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
We're in an artillery position about 2 miles away from Gaza.
And ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
We're not far from where this rally took place, so just stick with us here.
Traveling with the president to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Here in London today.
Off the coast of Gaza.
Downtown Tel Aviv, rockets or missiles coming in.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii. Some areas are still smoldering.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines,
the ruins of Rafah.
From the FBI.
Reporting from Capitol Hill.
In western Portugal.
Outside of Mexico City.
In Iceland.
Let's go.
Here in France.
The eclipse across America.
Just stunning.
Unbelievable.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming.
ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere because the news never stops.
Boys.
Auntie? Oh.
This is how your father's business works. The life of crime and the life of this deli.
We're innocent.
We'd be the first innocent brown people in jail. Oh my God.
There's a gun in the credenza. Finish him off now.
What?
What part of this are you not understanding?
Credenza, if I'm being honest, I don't think I know what that is.
From Pixar comes an all-new original series.
Everyone is chasing the feeling of a win.
Hey, Lori, you're famous.
But if someone wins,
you're not funny.
Somebody has to lose. What did I just do?
One story.
Hey,
no matter what happens, you are all winners. Told from 8 sides.
We'll make it work.
We always do.
Better not blow it.
Disney Pixar's Win or Lose. Available February 19th only on Disney+.
I'd never seen that many skeletal remains in thousands.
This killer, he's the Dahmer you've never heard of.
There were mannequins, almost like it was a club.
I felt the presence of evil.
Never before a face-to-face interview with the camera.
Why now?
Let me ask you, am I the evil culprit, the accomplice?
I'd like to know how the audience views me.
The Fox Hollow Murders, playground of a serial killer, only on Hulu.
You know how difficult my dad is.
You know, I hear everything from in here.
I'm broke and I need a place to stay until I find a job. Can we try to talk to each other like rational adults?
Have you watched the news lately? That's not a thing anymore. You could go back to law school. That's always been your dream.
Actually, that was your dream for me.
You like to argue.
You do love to argue.
As long as we get paid for it.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families.
On the ground in Ukraine.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Welcome. We have breaking news. President Trump is convening the first cabinet meeting of his second administration. Let's listen.
We've had tremendous success, and we've been given a lot of credit for having a very successful first month, and we want to make that many months and years, actually. But we're going to have many good months, and we're going to have many good years, I hope, and we're going to solve a lot of problems. We're doing very well with Russia, Ukraine. President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. Really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things. And as you know, we're in for probably $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. And that's a big difference. So we're in for probably 3 times as much, and yet it's very important to everybody, but Europe's very close. We have a big ocean separating us, so it's very important for Europe, and they hopefully will step up and do maybe more than they're doing, and maybe a lot more. The previous administration put us in a very bad position, but we've been able to make a deal where we're going to get our money back, and we're going to get a lot of money in the future, and I think that's appropriate because we have taxpayers that shouldn't be footing the bill, and they shouldn't be footing the bill at more than the Europeans are paying. So it's all been worked out. We're happy about it, and I think that very importantly, we're going to be able to make a deal. Most importantly, by far, we're going to make a deal with Russia and Ukraine to stop killing people. They'll stop killing young Russian soldiers and young Ukrainian soldiers and other people in addition in the towns and cities. And we will consider that a very important thing and a big accomplishment because it was going nowhere until this administration came in. They hadn't spoken to President Putin in 2 years. And so we'll keep you advised. Before we begin the cabinet, I'd like to have Scott and a couple of people say a few things, but most importantly, where are you? This is a gentleman who's going places, the head of HUD, and he's going to say, you all know him, and you're going to say grace, and then we'll have our meeting, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this awesome privilege, Father, to be in your presence. God, thank you that you've allowed us to see this day. The Bible says that your mercies are new every morning. And Father God, we give you the glory and the honor. Thank you, God, for President Trump, Father, for appointing us. Father God, thank you for anointing us to do this job. Father, we pray you'll give the president, the vice president wisdom, Father God, as they lead. Father, I pray for all of my colleagues that are here around the table and in this room. Lord God, we pray that we would lead with a righteous clarity. Father God, that as we serve the people of this country in every prospective agency, every job that we have, Father, we would humble ourselves before you and we would lead in the manner that you've called us to lead and to serve. Father, the Bible says that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Well, Father, we today honor you, and in your rightful place, Father, thank you for giving us this opportunity to restore faith in this country and be a blessing to the people of America. And Lord God, today in our meeting, we pray that you would be glorified in our conversation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Scott, that was a very good job you did. You've done that before, haven't you? So Scott Turner's a terrific young guy. He's heading up HUD, and he's going to make us all very proud, right?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Great job. In just over 1 month, illegal border crossings have plummeted by numbers that nobody's actually ever seen before. It's much more than 100%. And we've unleashed American energy at levels that will soon be reported. But we think we're going to get it going very quickly. We have incredible people on the energy front. I think we have really great people on every front. I'll let you know if they're not good, but I think they really are. And we're fighting every day to get the prices down. The inflation is stopping slowly, but part of the reason it's stopping is because of high interest rates and other problems that we inherited. But we have to get the prices down, not the inflation down, the prices of eggs and various other things. Eggs are a disaster. The Secretary of Agriculture is going to be showing you a chart that's actually mind-boggling what's happened, how low they were with us and how high they are now. But I think we can do something about it, yes, Madam Secretary, and I think you're going to do a fantastic job in that position. One of the most important initiatives is DOGE, and we have cut billions and billions and billions of dollars. We're looking to get it maybe to $1 trillion. If we can do that, we're going to start getting to be at a point where we can think in terms of balancing budgets, believe it or not, something you haven't heard in many, many years, decades actually. And it's a big, whether it's this year or next year, I think we'll be very close to balancing budgets. And the DOGE is very important. And Elon is here to give you a summary of what's happening, some of the things they found, some of the horrible things they found, some of the theft and fraud, and we call it waste and abuse, but a lot of fraud, and probably some fraud that we're not going to be able to prove is fraud, but when you hear the names and the places where this money's going, it's a disgrace. But we've requested that a lot of people, we want to make sure that the people are working, so letters were sent out, and I think everyone at this table is very much behind it, and if they aren't, I'd want them to speak up, but they're very much behind it. Letters were sent out to people just to find out if the people exist. Do they work? Who do they work for? Where are they? You know, where have they been working? Have they been working for other companies or other entities at all, or being paid by the government, so they have 2 jobs, but they're supposed to have 1? And the letter asks some simple questions like, what have you done lately? And if they can answer that, because I can tell you everything I've done for the last long period of time, a lot more than a week. And in many cases, we haven't gotten responses. Usually that means that maybe that person doesn't exist, or that person doesn't want to say they're working for another company while being paid by the United States government. So there's a lot of interesting things. It's very unique, but we have a very unique situation because we have a lot of people that were scamming our country. We have a lot of dishonest people. We have a lot of people that took advantage of a lot of different situations, and we're not going to let that happen. So I'm going to ask if it's possible to have Elon get up first and talk about DOGE, because it seems to be of great interest to everyone. I will say that there is a large group of people in this country that have such admiration for what we're doing. I got elected with a tremendous vote, winning every swing state, winning the popular vote, winning the counties by thousands of counties. I think it was 2,800 to 500, 2,800 counties to 500 counties. Think of that. And so we have a mandate to do this, and this is part of the reason I got elected. I got elected based on taxes and based on many things in the border, but also based on balancing budgets and getting our country back into shape, and this is a big part of it. So Elon, if you could get up and explain where you are, how you're doing, and how much we're cutting, and it's an honor to have you. He's been a tremendously successful guy. He's really working so hard, and he's got businesses to run. And in many ways, they say, "How do you do this?" And you know, he's sacrificing a lot and getting a lot of praise, I'll tell you. But he's also getting hit, and we would expect that, and that's the way it works. So I'd like to have Elon Musk please say a few words.
Well,
thank you, Elon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually just call myself a humble tech support here because this is actually, as crazy as it sounds, that is almost a literal description of the work that the DOGE team is doing, is helping fix the government computer systems. Many of these systems are extremely old. They don't communicate. There are a lot of mistakes in the systems. The software doesn't work. So we are actually tech support. It's ironic, but it's true. The overall goal here with the DOGE team is to help address the enormous deficit. We simply cannot sustain as a country $2 trillion deficits. The interest rates, just the interest on the national debt, now exceeds the Defense Department spending. We spend a lot on the Defense Department, but we're spending like over $1 trillion on interest. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt. It's not an optional thing, it is an essential thing. That's the reason I'm here. And taking a lot of flack, and getting a lot of death threats, by the way. I mean, I like to stack them up, you know. But if we don't do this, America will go bankrupt. That's why it has to be done. And I'm confident at this point, knock on wood, you know, knock on my wooden head, there's got a lot of wood up there, that we can actually find $1 trillion in savings. That would be roughly 15% of the $7 trillion budget. And obviously that can only be done with the support of everyone in this room. And I'd like to thank everyone for your support. Thank you very much. This can only be done with your support. So this is really, DOGE is a support function for the president and for the agencies and departments to help achieve those savings and to effectively find 15% in reduction in fraud and waste. And we bring the receipts. So people say, like, well, is this real? Just go to doge.gov. We line item by line item, we specify each item. So, and I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately, and there was no interruption. But we do need to move quickly if we're to achieve a $1 trillion deficit reduction in financial year 2026. It requires saving $4 billion per day, every day, from now through the end of September. But we can do it, and we will do it. Thank you.
Would you have any questions of Elon while we're on the subject of those? Because we'll finish off with that. And if you would have any questions, please ask. You could ask me or Elon. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I just wanted to ask you that President Trump put out a Truth Social today saying that everybody in the cabinet was happy with you. I just wondered if you had heard otherwise, and if you had heard anything about members of the cabinet who weren't happy with the way things were going, and if so, what are you doing to address those any dissatisfaction?
Hey, Elon, let the cabinet speak just for a second. Is anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, well, throw them out of here. Is anybody unhappy? They have a lot of respect for Elon and that he's doing this, and some disagree a little bit, but I will tell you, for the most part, I think everyone's not only happy, they're thrilled. So go ahead, Elon.
I'm grateful.
And President Trump has put together, I think, the best cabinet ever. Literally. So, and I do not give false praise. This is an incredible group of people. I don't think that such a talented team has actually ever been assembled. I think it's literally the best cabinet that the country's ever had, and I think the company should be incredibly appreciative of the people in this room.
Mr. Musk. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. Musk. Are there about half of the government employees so far appear to have responded to your request for what they've been doing over the past week? Is there a timeline in place for next moves for people being fired, and when can people expect to see results of that?
Yes. Well, to be clear, I think that email perhaps was misinterpreted as a performance review, but actually it was a pulse check review. Do you have a pulse? Do you have a pulse and 2 neurons? So if you have a pulse and 2 neurons, you can reply to an email. This is, I think not a high bar, is what I'm saying. This is, anyone can accomplish this? But what we are trying to get to the bottom of is we think there are a number of people on the government payroll who are dead, which is probably why they can't respond. And some people who are not real people, like they're literally fictional individuals that are collecting paychecks. Well, somebody's collecting paychecks on a fictional individual, so we're just literally trying to figure out, are these people real? Are they alive? And can they write an email? Which I think is a reasonable expectation for the American public would have at least that expectation of someone in the public sector.
Mr. Musk, roughly 1 million employees.
It's not a high bar, guys, come on.
Roughly 1 million employees have responded so far to this email. Does that mean that the remaining 1 million or so federal employees now risk being terminated? And is it your understanding and expectation when you post a directive on X that the cabinet secretaries will follow that order? Because several agencies have instructed employees that this is voluntary or not to respond.
Yeah, well, I guess it was like last week, the president encouraged me via Truth Social and also via phone call to be more aggressive. And I was like, okay, yes, sir, Mr. President, we will indeed do that. The president is the commander in chief. I do what the president asks. And I said, can we send out an email to everyone just saying, what did you get done last week? And the president said yes, so it did that. We got a partial response. We're going to send another email. But our goal is not to be capricious or unfair. We want to give people every opportunity to send an email. And the email could simply be, what I'm working on is too sensitive or classified to describe. Like literally just, that would be sufficient. I think this is just common sense.
And what is your target number for how many workers, employees you're looking to cut total?
We wish to keep everyone who is doing a job that is essential and doing that job well. But if the job is not essential or they're not doing the job well, they obviously should not be on the public payroll.
I'd like to add, wait a minute. I'd like to add that those million people that haven't responded, though, Elon, they are on the bubble. I wouldn't say that we're thrilled about it. They haven't responded. Now, maybe they don't exist. Maybe we're paying people that don't exist. Don't forget, we just got here. This group just got here. But those people are on the bubble, as they say. You know, maybe they're going to be gone. Maybe they're not around. Maybe they have other jobs. Maybe they moved and they're not where they're supposed to be. A lot of things could have happened. I wouldn't say that Biden ran a very tight administration. They spent money like nobody's ever spent money before, wasted money. The Green New Scam, all of the different things they spent money on. And you've seen that. We've seen that with some of the things that I read in speeches. I read them and people can't believe when I read them. 20 million here, 30 million here for, you know, a little educational course on something. Circumcision, right? Circumcision. $20 million to inform the people of such and such a country on other things and other things other than that. So, yeah, those people are, right now we're trying to find out who those people are that haven't responded. Now, there'll be some agencies, like Marco has people within state that are right now doing very classified, very confidential work, and we understand that. We've talked, and, you know, we're being a little more surgical. And Marco's doing a lot of things himself. He's, and some of the secretaries we're going to be going to them. We're going to be talking about it today. We're going to ask them to do their own DOGE. In other words, they'll look in their group and I spoke with Lee Zeldin, and he thinks he's going to be cutting 65% or so of the people from environmental. And we're going to speed up the process too at the same time. You had a lot of people that weren't doing their job. They were just obstructionists, and a lot of people that didn't exist, I guess, Lee, too. You found a lot of empty spots that the people weren't there. They didn't exist. And I think education is going to be one of those. You go around Washington, you see all these buildings for the Department of Education. We want to move education back to the states where it belongs. Iowa should have education. Indiana should run their own education. You're going to see education go way up. Right now, we're ranked at the very bottom of the list, but we're at the top of the list in one thing: the cost per pupil. We spend more money per pupil than any other country in the world. And yet it's Denmark and Norway, Sweden, and I hate to say this, and you know, we're going to get along very well with China, but it's a competitor. They're at the top of the list. They're among the top 10 usually, and they're a very big country, so we can't use that as an excuse, right? Because we're a very big country too, but we were ranked last time under Biden. We were ranked 40 out of 40. They do the 40 certain nations that they've done for a long time. It seems to be 40 for whatever reason. And we were ranked number 40. A year ago we were 38, then we were 39. We hit 40. And so we're last in that, and we're first in cost per pupil. So I would say that's unacceptable. Lawrence, you have something?
So, Mr. President, I know you like competition, and I know it's early, so which department are you most impressed with? And then to Mr. Musk. That's the first one. Mr. Musk, which department have you received the most resistance from? Mr. President,
well, I think both of those questions are a little bit, well, you're a pretty controversial guy. Look, it's very early. Right now, I think I'm impressed with everybody. So far, everybody. If I wasn't in the first month, and some of them just got here, they just got approved 2 days ago, right? But I think I'm very impressed with everybody. So far, I'm very happy with all of the choices. I think that Elon has done incredibly with some groups, and some groups are much easier than others. It is true. State is a, you know, very difficult situation. We're right now negotiating very successfully, I think, with Russia and with Ukraine, and we have a lot of countries involved, and we have to be a little bit careful what we do and who we're terminating. But Marco is doing that I think he's going to be very precise. It's going to be, we're cutting down government. We're cutting down the size of government. We have to. We're bloated. We're sloppy. We have a lot of people that aren't doing their job. We have a lot of people that don't exist. You look at Social Security as an example. I mean, you have so many people in Social Security where, if you believe it, they're 200 years old. And what we're doing is finding out are checks going out for that, and is somebody cashing those checks who's maybe 35 years old, okay? So there's a lot of dishonesty, there's a lot of fraud. But I think at this moment, I'll take Elon off the spot. I think that he's impressed. He said it very well, better than I can say it, that he's impressed with the people in this room, very impressed. And I am too, and it's too early to say. But I think everybody's on board. They all know. We want to balance a budget. We want to have a balanced budget within a reasonably short period of time, meaning maybe by next year or the year after, but maybe even sooner than that.
Mr. President, your number one issue was the border. We just got new information that they're doxing our federal agents. They're putting their personal information out there, these activists, and they're disrupting the operation. So you got Trinidad and Tobago running all across the country.
We have activists, that's true. And
so what are we going to do about the activists?
Yeah, a lot of those activists are acting illegally, and we'll give that to our Attorney General, and she'll take a look at that very strongly. But we also having a tremendous support from Border Patrol, from ICE. The ICE agents have been unbelievable. Border Patrol, their leadership at Border Patrol has been incredible, and they're working very well. And as you know, and I saw you reporting it this morning, actually, we set records on the least number of illegal aliens coming in, migrants coming into our country that we've had in more than 50 years. And we did this all within a period of weeks because we took over a mess. The world was pouring in. And remember, they were coming in from jails and prisons and mental institutions and insane asylums, and they were gang members and drug dealers. Anybody wanted to come in, they came. And from not just South America, from all over the world. So it's amazing what they've done. And Christie and Tom Holman, the job they've done has been absolutely amazing. We set records for and we want people to come into our country, by the way, but they want to come in, they have to come in legally. I want that to be really understood. We want people in our country, but they have to come in legally.
Can I follow on that, Mr. President, about the Trump gold card idea that you unveiled yesterday?
I hope you like it.
I await more information, but the question is, does this reflect a view on your part that the American immigration system has never been properly monetized as you feel it should be?
Well, not so much monetized. It hasn't been properly run. I get calls from, as an example, companies where they want to hire the number one student at a school. A person comes from India, China, Japan, lots of different places, and they go to Harvard, the Wharton School of Finance, they go to Yale, they go to all great schools, and they graduate number one in their class. And they're made job offers, but the offer is immediately rescinded because you have no idea whether or not that person can stay in the country. I want to be able to have that person stay in the country. These companies can go and buy a gold card, and they can use it as a matter of recruitment. At the same time, the company is using that money to pay down debt. We're going to pay down a lot of debt with that. And I think the gold card is going to be used by, not only for that, I mean, they'll be used by companies. I mean, I could see Apple. I've spoken with Tim Cook, and by the way, he's going to make a $500 billion investment in the country only because of the results of the election. And I think because of tariffs. He's going to want to be in the country because of tariffs. Because if you're in the country, there is no tariff. If you're out of the country, you got to pay tariffs. And that's going to be a great investment, I think, that he's making. I know it's going to be a great investment, but we have to be able to get people in the country, and we want people that are productive people. And I will tell you, the people that can pay $5 million, they're going to create jobs. They're going to spend a lot of money on jobs. They're going to have to pay taxes on that too. So they're going to be hiring people. They're going to be bringing people in and companies in. And I don't know, maybe it will sell like crazy. I happen to think it's going to sell like crazy. It's a bargain. But we'll know fairly soon. I think Howard and Scott, a few of you really are responsible for it. But Howard, if you want to discuss that for a couple of minutes, I think I'd like to have you. I think it's going to be a very successful program. This is commerce.
So the EB-5 program, which has been around for many years, had investment of $1 million into projects in America. And those projects were often suspect. They didn't really work out. There wasn't any oversight of it. And so for $1 million investment, you got a visa, and then you came into the country and ended up with a green card. So it was poorly overseen, poorly executed. Then you had our border open where millions of people came through. So the idea is we will have a proper business. We will modify the EB-5 agreement. Christy and I are working on it together. For $5 million, they'll get a license from the Department of Commerce. Then they'll make a proper investment on the EB-5. right? And we think Scott and I will design the EB5 investment model because Scott and I are the best people together to do that. So this is joint. This is exactly the Trump administration. We all work together. We work it out to be the best. And if we sell, just remember, 200,000. There's a line for EB5 of 250,000 right now. 200,000 of these gold green cards is $1 trillion to pay down our debt. And that's why the president is doing it, because we are going to balance this budget and we are going to pay off the debt under President Trump.
And to qualify, do you have to promise and make commitments to create a certain number of jobs here in the U.S.?
No, because not all these people are going to be job builders. There'll be successful people, or there'll be people that were hired from colleges, like sort of like paying an athlete a bonus. I mean, Apple or one of the companies will go out and they'll spend they'll buy 5 of them and they're going to get 5 people. Look, I've had the complaint from a lot of companies where they go out to hire people and they can't hire them out of colleges. And you know what they do? They go back to India, or they go back to the country where they came, and they open up a company, and they become billionaires. And they're employing thousands and thousands. There are a lot of examples. There are some really big examples where they were forced out of the country. They graduated top in their class at a great school, and they weren't able to stay. This is all the time you hear it. And the biggest complaint I get from companies, other than over-regulation, which we took care of, but we're going to have to take care of it here because a lot of that was put back on by Biden. But the biggest complaint is the fact that they can't have any longevity with people. This way they have pretty much unlimited longevity. Also with the 5 million, you know, that's a path to citizenship. So that's going to be, it's sort of a green card plus, and it's a path to citizenship. We're going to call it the gold card. And I think it's going to be very treasured. I think it's going to do very well. And we're going to start selling, hopefully, in about 2 weeks. Now, just so you understand, if we sell 1 million, right, 1 million, that's $5 trillion. 5 trillion. Howard was using a different number, but that's $5 trillion. If we sell 10 million, which is possible, 10 million highly productive people coming in, or people that we're going to make productive, they'll be young, but they're talented, like a talented athlete. That's $50 trillion. That means our debt is totally paid off, and we have $15 trillion above that. And now I don't know that we're going to sell that many. Maybe we won't sell many at all, but I think we're going to sell a lot, because I think there really is a thirst. No other country can do this because people don't want to go to other countries. They want to come here. Everybody wants to come here, especially since November 5th.
Mr. President, how can you
By the way, all these people will be vetted. Okay?
Mr.
They'll be
President, on
vetted.
Ukraine, can you talk a little bit about what type of security guarantees you're willing to make?
Well, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that because it's in, you know, we're talking about Europe is their next door neighbor. But we're going to make sure everything goes well. And as you know, we'll be making we'll be really partnering with Ukraine in terms of rare earth. We very much need rare earth. They have great rare earth. We'll be working with Secretary Burgum and with Chris. You'll be working on that together. And we're going to be able to have tremendous, I mean, this gives us, because we don't have that much of it here. We have some, but we don't have that much, and we need a lot more to really propel us to the next level to lead in every way. We're leading right now with AI. We're leading with everything right now, but we need resources. We have to double our electric capacity. We have to do many things. We have to really triple, if you think of it, the electric capacity from what we have right now, if you can believe it. So I just say this, the deal we're making gets us, it brings us great wealth. We get back the money that we spent, and we hope that we're going to be able to settle this up. We want to settle it. We want to stop. I tell you what, I'm doing it for 2 reasons, but the number one reason by far is to watch all these people being killed. I see pictures every week from, I assume satellite pictures mostly, but there's some pictures on site of thousands of soldiers that are being killed. They're being decimated because equipment today, military equipment, is so powerful and so devastating. And number one, I want to see people stop. And they're not from here. They're from primarily 2 other countries. And then, by the way, let's talk about the Middle East. We got to solve that problem too. And that's come a long way. We're doing very well in that also. A lot of things are happening on that. But I'm watching soldiers being killed, Ukrainian and Russian soldiers being killed. My number one thing is to get that stopped. My number two thing is I don't want to have to pay any more money, because Biden has spent $350 billion without any chance of getting it back. Now we're going to be getting all of that money back plus a lot more. And we provided a great thing. I mean, we provided something very important. And we'll be working with Ukraine, and because we'll be taking that, we're going to be taking what we're entitled to take. Now, they spent $350 billion, and Europe spent $100 billion. Now, does anybody really think that's fair? But then we find out a little while ago, not so long ago, a few months ago, I found out that the money they spent, they get back. But the money we spent, we don't get back. I said, well, we're going to get it back. And we'll be able to make a deal. And again, President Zelensky's coming to sign the deal. And it's a great thing. It's a great deal for Ukraine, too, because they get us over there, and we're going to be working over there. We'll be on the land. And, you know, in that way, there's sort of automatic security, because nobody's going to be messing around with our people when we're there. And so we'll be there in that way. But Europe will be watching it very closely. I know that UK has said, and France has said, that they volunteered to put so-called peacekeepers on the site, and I think that's a good thing.
Mr. President, you have mentioned the high cost of eggs, and we've seen consumer confidence this week have a sharp drop from last month, the biggest dip in, I believe, 3 years. Why is that, your assessment? Why is that the case, and is there anything you can do?
I think that consumer confidence, if you look at confidence in the nation, it had the biggest increase in the history of the chart. It went up 42 points in a period of like days after the election, since the election. So since the election, the confidence in our nation, including right track, wrong track, the first time it's ever happened where we were on the right track, because this country has been on the wrong track for a long time. So the confidence in business, confidence in the country has reached an all-time high. We have never reached levels like we are right now. Okay.
Mr. President, you've been very clear in saying that as long as you're president, Iran will never get a nuclear weapon.
That's true.
Is it also your policy that as long as you're president, China will never take Taiwan by force?
I never comment on that. I don't comment on anything because I don't want to ever put myself in that position. And if I said it, I certainly wouldn't be saying it to you. I'd be saying it to other people, maybe people around this table, and very specific people around this table. So I don't want to put myself in that position. But I can tell you what, I have a great relationship with President Xi. I've had a great relationship with him. We want them to come in and invest. I see so many things saying that we don't want China in this country. That's not right. We want them to invest in the United States. That's good. That's a lot of money coming in, and we'll invest in China. We'll do things with China. The relationship we'll have with China will be a very good one. I see all of these phony reports that we don't want them money, we don't want anything to do with them. That's wrong. We're going to have a good relationship with China, but they won't be able to take advantage of us. What they did to Biden was, he didn't know what was happening. He didn't know what he was doing. The administration didn't know what they were doing. It was very sad to watch. But we're going to have a good relationship with China and Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East. We're doing things that, look, when I left, we had no wars. We had defeated ISIS totally. We had no inflation. We didn't have the Afghanistan withdrawal, the worst withdrawal anybody's ever seen. I think that's one of the reasons that President Putin looked at that. He said, wow, these guys are a paper tiger. Look at it, we're no paper tiger. Don't forget, we got rid of ISIS in 3 weeks. People said it would take 5 years. We did it because when I came in, I let them do what they had to do. And the man that headed that operation is now going to be your chairman, right? Chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Yes, sir.
And Raisin Kane. I liked him right from the beginning. As soon as I heard his name, I said, that's my guy. Okay. Any other questions?
Decreases in crossings at the border for you to continue the pause on tariffs against Mexico and Canada? And
No,
if
no,
not,
I'm not stopping the tariffs. No. Millions of people have died because of the fentanyl that comes over the border.
even with the 90% drop in border crossings, though, this last month compared to about a year ago?
Yeah, they've been good, but that's also due to us, mostly due to us. I mean, it's very hard. It's right now very hard to come through the border. But the damage has been done. We've lost millions of people due to fentanyl. It comes mostly from China, but it comes through Mexico and it comes through Canada. And I have to tell you that, on April 2nd, I was going to do it on April 1st, but I'm a little bit superstitious, so I made it April 2nd. The tariffs go on, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I think you're going to see something that's going to be amazing. We've been taken advantage of as a country for a long period of time. We've been tariffed, but we didn't tariff. Now, I did, when I was here, we took in $700 billion from China. $700 billion. Not one president in the history of our country took in 10 cents from China. At the same time, China respected us. Now, when COVID came in, that was a different deal. I used to call it the China virus. I guess I can call it the China virus again, but it's an accurate term, but I won't do that out of respect to China.
Immigration enforcement.
Say it again.
On Gaza, I just wondered if there's any progress towards a second phase of the ceasefire.
Well, I'm very disappointed when I see four bodies came in today. These are young people. Young people don't die, okay? Young people don't die. These are young people. 4 bodies came in today. They think they're doing us a favor by sending us bodies. So, look, that's a decision that has to be made by Israel, by Bibi. But Israel has to make that decision. We got a lot of hostages back, but it's very sad what happened to those people. I mean, you had a young lady with her hand practically blown off. You know why it blew up? Because she put up her hand to try and stop a bullet that was coming her way. And it hit her hand and blew off her fingers, big part of her hand. This is a vicious group of people. And Israel's going to have to decide what they're doing. Phase 1 is going to be ending. Think of it, today they sent in 4 bodies. And I will say one thing, though. I've spoken to a lot of the parents and a lot of the people involved. They want those bodies almost as much and maybe even just as much as they wanted their son or their daughter. Amazing. Please, sir, please. My son is dead, but they have his body. Please, can you get it for us? It's the biggest thing. It's incredible, the level. They want the bodies of these people. They're dead. They're dead. And, when I saw the ones that came in 2 weeks ago, they looked like they just got out of a concentration camp. Then the following week, a group came in and they weren't as bad and as bad a shape. But Israel's going to have to make a decision. You're right, phase 1 and now phase 2 has started. And today we got some, very, very, we knew they were dead, by the way. We knew that they were going to be bodies as opposed to people that were living. But it's a very sad situation. At some point, somebody's going to say, hey, we got to do something about this.
Mr. President, we're just talking about Afghanistan and the botched withdrawal. Have all the generals or command staff that were involved with the withdrawal been fired or relieved of duty?
Well, that's a great idea. I'm not going to tell this man what to do, but I will say that. If I had his place, I'd fire every single one of them, Pete. That's a very good question.
Well, it's a question we've thought a lot about. We're doing a complete review of every single aspect of what happened with the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan and plan to have full accountability. It's one of the first things we announced at the Defense Department for that reason, sir. Certainly, General Raising Kane, who's on his way in, was not a part of that. Instead, was a part of leading the effort against ISIS by untying the hands of warfighters and finishing the job properly and then bringing our troops home. So we're taking a very different view, obviously, than the previous administration, and there will be full accountability.
I don't see big promotions in that group. And I think they're going to be largely gone. I know the man on my left. I think they're going to be largely gone. That was a horrible display. And, I've dealt with the parents and the family of the 13 that were killed. But, nobody ever talks about the 40 that were so badly hurt with the arms and the legs and the face and the whole thing, the missing arms and legs. It was so terrible the way that was handled. And it should have been gone through Bagram. We have a big base with big fences and nobody can get in, and you have, hundreds of acres instead of a little local airport where the whole place went crazy. That was so badly handled, and I would think that most of those people are going to be gone.
Are we going to take Bagram back?
So I'll tell you what has bothered me very much, very, very much. We give billions of dollars to Afghanistan. Nobody knows that. Nobody knew that. Do you know we give billions of dollars to Afghanistan? And yet we left behind all of that equipment, which wouldn't have happened. You know, we were getting out under me. I'm the one that got it down to 5,000 people. We were going to get out, but we were going to keep Bagram, not because of Afghanistan, but because of China, because it's exactly 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear missiles. So they were going to keep Bagram. We were going to keep a small force on Bagram. We were going to have Bagram Air Base, one of the biggest air bases in the world, one of the biggest runways, one of the most powerful runways in the sense that it was very heavy concrete and steel. You could carry about anything. You could land anything on those runways. We gave it up. And you know who's occupying it right now? China. Biden gave it up. So we're going to keep that, and we're going to have a withdrawal, and we're going to take our equipment. We're going to do it properly. We're going to do it we're going to keep the equipment. Well, they ran out. It was, what happened there was, in fact, you know, in all fairness to Putin, when he saw that, he said, well, this is our time to go into Ukraine, I guess, because the timing seemed to be about right. But we send them billions of dollars in aid, which nobody knows. If the American public knew that, they know it now. And if we're doing that, I think they should give our equipment back. And I told Pete to study that. But we left billions, tens of billions of dollars worth of equipment behind. Brand new trucks. You see them display it every year, or their little roadway someplace where they have a road and they drive waving the flag and talking about America. Beautiful equipment that's all, I mean, the top of the line stuff, brand new stuff. Now it's getting older. But you know what? We're going to pay them. I think we should get a lot of that equipment back. You know that Afghanistan is one of the biggest sellers of military equipment in the world. You know why? They're selling the equipment that we left. We're first. They were second or third. Can you believe it? They're selling 777,000 rifles, 70,000 armor-plated. Many of them were armor-plated trucks and vehicles. 70,000. If you think of a used car lot, the biggest one in the country, if I would say, JD, if somebody had 500 cars, that would be a lot. This is 70,000 vehicles we had there, and we left it for them. I think we should get it back.
Mr. President, the spending bill that passed last night aims to cut $2 trillion.
Right.
Can you guarantee that Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security will not be touched?
Yeah, I mean, I have said it so many times, you shouldn't be asking me that question, okay? This will not be read my lips. It won't be read my lips anymore. We're not going to touch it. Now, we are going to look for fraud. I'm sure you're okay with that, like people that shouldn't be on, people that are illegal aliens and others, criminals in many cases. And that's with Social Security. We have a lot of people. You see that immediately when you see people that are 200 years old that are being sent checks for Social Security. Some of them are actually being sent checks. So we're tracing that down, and I have a feeling that Pam is going to do a very good job with that. But you have a lot of fraud. But no, I'm not. We're not doing anything on that.
Part of your mission, sir,
Mr. President,
part of
your
your mission has
litigation-
been, thank you, I'm sorry. Part of your mission has been to restore executive control over the executive branch. Is it your view of your authority that you have the power to call up any one of or all of the people seated at this table and issue orders that they're bound to follow?
Oh, yeah, they'll follow the orders, yes, they will.
No exceptions?
No exception. Well, let's see, let me think. Oh, yeah. She'll have an exception. Of course, no exceptions. You know that.
Mr. President, can you clarify the Canada-Mexico tariffs? You had put that 30-day pause, but you just referred to April.
25%.
25%. When does it go into effect?
April 2nd.
April 2nd for Canada-Mexico.
Correct. And for everything.
Well, we have the fentanyl-related is a pause. If they can prove to the president they've done an excellent job, that's what they first do in 30 days.
Have you guys seen any
But then the
change?
overall is April 2nd. So the big transaction is April 2nd, but the fentanyl-related things, they're working hard on the border. At the end of that 30 days, they have to prove to the president that they've satisfied him to that regard. If they have,
gonna be
then
hard
he'll
to
give them a pause, or he won't. But
It's going
that's
to be
up
hard
to
to
him. We'll see.
satisfy. We lose 300,000 people a year to fentanyl. Not 100, not 95, not 60 like you read. You know, you've been reading it for years. We lost, in my opinion, over the last couple of years, on average, maybe close to 300,000 people dead. And the families are ruined. You know, when they lose a daughter, when they lose a son, the families are never the same. You're never going to be the same. So you're talking about 1 million people. But when the daughters die, I see it, daughters die and the sons die because of fentanyl. And in some cases, they don't even know they're taking it. They're buying something else and it's laced with fentanyl and they end up dying. And I've known many people who've lost children to fentanyl and for other reasons, but to fentanyl, it's such a big killer. And those people are never the same people. I mean, I've seen people that for the rest of their lives, they're not the same people. They're so different, it's not even believable. Dynamic people, happy people they die a miserable death. And that's because of the crap that comes in through China and through Mexico and through Canada. A lot of it comes through Canada. Look, we support Canada. $200 billion a year in subsidies, one way or the other. We let them make millions of cars. We let them send us lumber. We don't need their lumber. We're going to free up our lumber. Lee's going to do that, head of environmental. We're going to free up our lumber. We have the best lumber there is. We don't need their lumber. What do we need their lumber for? When you look at we subsidize them $200 billion a year. Without us, Canada can't make it. You know, Canada relies on us 95%. We rely on them 4%. Big difference. And I say Canada should be our 51st state. There's no tariffs, no nothing. And I say that we give them military protection. They have a very small military. They spend very little money on military. On NATO, they're just about last in terms of payment because they say, why should we spend on military? That's a tremendous cost. Most nations can't afford to even think about it. Why should we spend on military? The United States protects us. And I would say that's largely true. We protect Canada, but it's not fair. It's not fair that they're not paying their way. And if they had to pay their way, they couldn't exist. When I spoke to, let's call it the Prime Minister rather than the governor, but when I spoke to him, I said, why are we giving you $200 billion a year? He was unable to answer the question. I said, why are we letting you make millions of cars and send them in? He was unable to answer the question. Justin Trudeau. Nice guy. I think he's a very good guy. I call him Governor Trudeau. He should be governor because the fact is that if we don't give them cars, we don't have to give them cars. The tariffs will make it impossible for them to sell cars into the United States. The tariffs will make it impossible for them to sell lumber or anything else into the United States. And all I'm asking to do is break even or lose a little bit, but not lose $200 billion. And we love Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. And but honestly, it's not fair for us to be supporting Canada. And if we don't support them, they don't subsist as a nation. Okay?
Mr. President, on the EU tariffs, Mr. President, have you just made a decision on what level you will seek on tariffs in the European Union?
We have made a decision. We'll be announcing it very soon, and it'll be 25%, generally speaking, and that'll be on cars and all other things. And European Union is a different case than Canada, different kind of case. They've really taken advantage of us in a different way. They don't accept our cars. They don't accept essentially our farm products. They use all sorts of reasons why not. And we accept everything of them. And we have about a $300 billion deficit with the European Union. Now, I love the countries of Europe. I guess I'm from there at some point a long time ago, right? But indirectly, pretty directly too, I guess. But I love the countries of Europe. I love all countries, frankly, all different. But the European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it. And they've done a good job of it, but now I'm president.
What will happen if these countries or the EU retaliate?
They can't. I mean, they can try, but they can't.
China did. They
are
imposed
pledging
tariffs
to, sir.
that went into effect. China's retaliatory tariffs on the 10th of February. Has there been any impact that you've been able to observe?
That's right. No, they can do it, and they can try, but the numbers can never equal what ours, because we can go off. We are the pot of gold. We're the one that everybody wants, and they can retaliate, but it cannot be a successful retaliation because we just go cold turkey. We don't buy anymore, and if that happens, we win.
Are you talking to Eric Prince about privatizing deportations?
No, I haven't.
Mr. President, you're in litigation with CBS News. Is this a case that you'd like to see go to trial, or are you open to
With
some
who?
CBS, that 60 Minutes?
CBS?
Yes.
Well, CBS did something that was amazing. Kamala was unable to answer a question properly, and they took the question that they asked and they inserted an answer. They gave her an answer. This was 2 days before the election, right before the Sunday night before the election. And they wrote out they put her words from another question that was asked about a half an hour later, and they put that into the question. Nobody's ever even heard of it before. Nobody's ever heard of anything like this before, but they then did it, they say, on numerous occasions. And the FCC is looking at it very strongly, and everybody's looking at it, but nobody's ever seen anything. Think of it. They took her answers and they changed them. And I don't mean they changed a word or two, or they cut off a half a sentence, or they cut off a couple of words. I mean, I've had that happen too, but that you just say, then they say, well, we want brevity. We wanted to do it for time. They took out her answer and they inserted an entirely different answer that made her sound competent. And they did this, and nobody's ever, I thought I've heard of everything when it comes to that stuff. No, I've never heard of it. Nobody's ever seen. So we sued, and we are in discussions of settlement.
What would a number be? Like 100? What's a number that you would think would be appropriate?
I think it's a lot. It probably did affect the election. I mean, we won by a lot. As I said, too big to rig. But it probably did affect the election. Probably could have won by more. But I could have lost the election because of that. We have to get to honest elections. We have to go back to paper ballots. We have to go back to voter ID. One-day election, ideally, or a short term, not these 48-day and 61-day elections where boxes are put in a room and, let's move the boxes because we're putting in a new air conditioning system. And you see the boxes move, and then you say, well, where are all the boxes? What happened to the boxes that never came back? Now, our elections are extremely dishonest. We're the only country in the world that has mail-in voting and all of these different things that we put in. No other country in the world has it. France went to, they had some of the things that we had, and they went to same-day voting, all paper. And paper is very sophisticated now. It's a very sophisticated form of voting right now. It's a very safe form of voting. The other things for the governors, I wish the governors would do it because the paper ballots will cost 9% of the machines, and they're 100%. Nothing's foolproof, but they're as close as you get. So we'll see what happens. But on the 60-minute thing, nobody's ever seen anything like it.
And would you link the FCC action to the litigation? I mean, does it make sense?
I don't think it's linked, but probably the lawyers look at it, because I know it's going along. FCC is headed by a very competent person, and you have some very competent people on the board, and so I think they're looking at it very seriously.
Sir, of all the deals that you've done in your life, all the people you've sat across from and negotiated with, is President Putin distinct in any way?
He's a very smart guy. He's a very cunning person, but I've dealt with some really bad people. But I will tell you, as far as this is concerned, you have to understand, he had no intention, in my opinion, of settling this war. I think he wanted the whole thing. When I got elected, we spoke, and I think we're going to have a deal. I can't guarantee that. A deal is a deal. Lots of crazy things happen in deals, right? But I think we're going to have a deal. If I didn't get elected, I believe he would have just continued to go through Ukraine, and over a period of time, a lot of people would have been killed, would have lasted for a period of time. And the reason that Ukraine, and I have great respect for the Ukraine as fighters. They have great fighters, but without our equipment, that war would have been over, like people said, in a very short period of time. And if you remember, I gave the javelins, and the javelins are the things that knocked out those tanks right at the beginning of the war. They said that Obama at the time gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. Well, I was the one that did that, but I want to see it come to an end.
Will he have to make concessions, President Putin?
Yeah, he will. He's going to have to. And I think I believe that because we got elected, that war will come to an end. And I also believe if we didn't get elected, if this administration didn't win the election by a lot, that war would go on for a long time, and he would want to take the whole thing.
What concession?
The big question I had is, does he want to take the whole thing? But the reason, and the Ukrainians are good fighters, I have to say, but without the equipment, without our equipment, we have the best equipment in the world. We have the best military equipment in the world. Without our equipment, that would have been over very quickly.
What concessions would you like to see? What concessions would you like to see?
Oh, I don't want to tell right now, but I can tell you that NATO you can forget about. I think that's probably the reason the whole thing started. And I think, JD, we can say that. Do you have a statement on that? You've been very much involved. I gave him the beauty.
Great. Maybe the hardest question, sir.
Russia.
I mean, look, as the president said, we're not going to do the negotiation in public with the American media. He's going to do it in private with the president of Russia, with the president of Ukraine, and with other leaders. And I think that's how this has to go. I think I just want to push back against some of the criticism I've seen of the administration on this, because every single time the president engages in diplomacy, you guys preemptively accuse him of conceding to Russia. He hasn't conceded anything to anyone. He's doing the job of a diplomat, and he is, of course, the diplomat in chief as the President of the United States.
On the gold card, sir, can you talk a little bit more about the vetting process?
We'll go through a process. The process is being worked out right now, and we're going to be very careful.
Will there be restrictions on, for instance, can Chinese nationals get one? Can Iranian nationals
We're
get
probably not going to be restricting too much in terms of countries, but maybe in terms of individuals. We want to make sure we have people that love our country and are capable of loving the country.
There's a measles outbreak in Texas at the moment in which a child is reported to have died. Do you have concerns about that, and have you asked Secretary Kennedy to look into that?
Well, why don't we, Bobby, do you want to speak on that?
No, we are following the measles epidemic every day. I think there's 124 people who have contracted measles at this point, mainly in Kings County, Texas. Mainly, we're told, in the Mennonite community. There are 2 people who have died, but we're watching it, and there are about 20 people hospitalized, mainly for quarantine. We're watching it. We put out a post on it yesterday, and we're going to continue to follow it. Incidentally, there have been 4 measles outbreaks this year. In this country last year, there were 16. So it's not unusual. We have measles outbreaks every year.
You sound a little under the weather yourself right now.
I have a permanently bad throat.
Coughing.
Mr. President, would you send U.S. peacekeepers to support the European peacekeepers? Would you do any sort of U.S.
No, we're going to support Europe, yeah.
And how would we do
We're
that?
very friendly with Europe. We have a great relationship with Europe. I mean, you could you could talk about France, you could talk about any of them. I mean, we have a great relationship with Europe.
But how will the United States do that? Would there be boots on?
I mean, you're asking me a question. What are we doing in the field? Let's worry. I hope we have that problem where we can worry about peacekeeping. We got to get there first. But I hope we have the problem of worrying about peacekeeping. That'll be the easiest problem, I think, JD, that we've ever had.
That would be part of the deal, presumably, that the Ukrainians would want.
We'll do it at the time. But peacekeeping is very easy. It's making the deal that's very tough. And again, nobody was speaking to Russia at all. And, probably 1.5 million soldiers have been killed, close to 1.5 million soldiers, not to mention a tremendous. I will tell you, the thing with that horrible war that should have never started, would have never started if I were president. And it didn't start for 4 years, and it was not even thought about starting. But the thing with that war is that you're highly underestimating the number of people that have been killed. Far more people have been killed in that war than you talk about. You like to talk about numbers like 1 million people. Well, they had much more than 1 million soldiers killed. But you have a lot of cities that have been knocked to the ground. They're demolition sites, literally demolition sites. Every single building is knocked to the ground. And a lot of people were killed in those buildings. And you'll hear a report, 2 people were minorly injured or just injured a little bit. No, people were killed by the thousands. And there are a lot more people killed in that war than the media wants to talk about, because Biden did a horrible, horrible job. He should have prevented that war. He could have prevented that war. Putin would have never gone in. I'll tell you one thing. He would have never gone in. That war would never have taken place if I were president.
I think what people are trying to understand, Mr. President, is how would the United States, what would you be willing to do to support this European peacekeeping effort? Would there be...
Again, you're asking me the same question? How many times do you have to answer? You're talking about after we make peace. Let me make peace first. Once we make peace, I'll give you all the answers you want. But how many times can you ask the same question?
Is loosening of sanctions
Is
loosening of sanctions on Russia a potential option as part of an overall deal?
No. We have sanctions on Russia. No, I want to see if we make a deal first, but I think we will. I've had very good conversations with President Putin. I've had very good conversations with President Zelensky, and until 4 weeks ago, nobody had conversations with anybody. It wasn't even a consideration. Nobody thought you could make peace. I think you can.
But if
Mr. President,
Putin gets to
just to
keep
bring this-
the land that was claimed by force, if the Russians get to keep the territory that they claim by force, doesn't that send a dangerous message, let's say, to China about Taiwan?
Okay. You try and take it away, right? We're gonna do the best we can. We're gonna do the best we can to make the best deal we can for both sides. But for Ukraine, we're gonna try very hard to make a good deal so that they can get as much back as possible. We want to get as much back as possible.
Mr. President, just to bring this full...
We'll cut it out after maybe this question. Go ahead.
To bring this full circle,
Unless it's a
back
bad
to...
question, don't worry.
Back to a question.
You always like to finish on a good one.
Sir, they want you to negotiate with them instead of with President Putin.
Back to a question about
the peacekeepers. You have a lot of confidence in us because you assume there's going to be peace. You know, it's possible it doesn't work out. There is possibility. But I hope it does for the sake of humanity, because if you look at the pictures that I've looked at, you don't want to look at them. Go ahead.
I had a question back on these cuts to the federal workforce. You mentioned you're interested in doing another round of this email. When would you like to see that? What would be the deadline? And this time, would it be mandatory?
I think Elon wants to, and I think it's a good idea because, you know, those people, as I said before, they're on the bubble. You got a lot of people that have not responded, so we're trying to figure out, do they exist? Who are they? And it's possible that a lot of those people will be actually fired. And if that happened, that's okay, because that's what we're trying to do. This country has gotten bloated and fat and disgusting and incompetently run. I think we had the worst president in the history of our country. He just left office. I think he's a disgrace, what he's done to our country by allowing millions of people to come into our country like that. And all of the other things, the inflation, which he caused because of energy and stupid spending, to spend hundreds of millions, trillions and trillions of dollars on the Green New scam, a total scam. I have the best energy people, the best environmental people in the world around this table, and they can't even believe he got away with it. And then in leaving office to send $20 billion here and $20 million there and 10 million and 5 million, and they couldn't spend the money fast enough, and let's get it out before Trump gets in, let's just get it out to anybody. This is a disgrace to our nation, and you don't write the fair thing, but look, you know, the good news, the people see it, and that's why we won the election by so much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Out right back here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pulitzer Prize.
We've just been watching President Trump holding the first cabinet meeting of his second administration. The president repeated his intention to make a deal to end the war in Ukraine, saying he plans to sign an economic agreement with Ukraine when President Zelensky comes to the White House on Friday. President Trump also touted Elon Musk's work with the Department of Government Efficiency, saying they've already saved billions of dollars in what he calls wasteful and even fraudulent spending. Musk joked that he's just there as tech support and then took some questions on DOGE's purge of government employees and an email that he sent to federal workers asking them to reply with a list of their accomplishments for the week. He also said DOGE is posting receipts for all of that on doge.gov and admitted to mistakenly cutting an Ebola prevention initiative, but says that it was quickly restored. So let's bring in White House correspondent Karen Travers, ABC News executive editorial producer John Santucci, senior reporter Catherine Falders, and ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill for more on all of that. And Karen, we have to start, I think, with the moment that got the biggest reaction, which was when a reporter asked if any cabinet members disagreed with Elon Musk. And I want to play some of that exchange.
President Trump put out a truth social today saying that everybody in the cabinet was happy with you. I just wondered if you had heard otherwise, and if you had heard anything about members of the cabinet who weren't happy with the way things were going, and if so, what are you doing to address those any dissatisfaction?
Hey, Elon, let the cabinet speak just for a second. Is anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, well, throw him out of here. Is anybody unhappy? They have a lot of respect for Elon and that he's doing this, and some disagree a little bit, but I will tell you, for the most part, I think everyone's not only happy, they're thrilled.
So, Karen, you heard it there. He said, some disagree a little bit, but didn't exactly let the cabinet members speak for themselves. He says overall, everyone, though, is supportive of Musk's cuts. What did you make of that moment?
It was quite a striking moment. Just the fact that Elon Musk was the first person that the president turned to in that room of his cabinet secretaries, all of those officials who could have presented what they have done over the first month of the Trump administration. It was Elon Musk who was given that opportunity, given the floor to talk about the work of DOGE, the Government Efficiency Department, and the cuts that they have done so far. And Elon Musk said that they have so far cut billions and billions of dollars. But, when you saw there the cabinet secretaries applauding, we were keeping an eye on Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who at first was not applauding, then gave sort of a single hand clap at the end there. But, there are likely disagreements with some of the actions that DOGE has done, the speed at which they're moving with some of these decisions. But the president there giving a full-throated endorsement for the work that Musk is doing, especially when it came to that email about show your work of the last week, give us 5 bullet points about what you have done. The president was asked about whether the people who have not responded to it are still potentially at risk of losing their jobs. And he said, Diane, they're on the bubble right now. And many of those people who haven't responded were doing so because of directions from people in that room. Cabinet secretaries who have said that that email was voluntary or they didn't have to respond to it because of the classified nature of their work. Still, the president not giving any more clarity then about what those people should be doing with directives like that coming from Elon Musk, not a cabinet secretary.
John, to Karen's point, how significant is it that Elon Musk was the first person to speak and the one that by far spoke for the longest at this meeting, aside from the president himself?
Yeah.
And what stands out to you from what he said today?
Well, I think a couple things. First, if you rewind the videotape to 2017, think about the first Trump cabinet meeting, right? And we all remember every member of the cabinet going around, beginning with then Vice President Mike Pence. To Karen's point, we didn't see many members of the cabinet talk today. It was really the Donald Trump Elon show, which has pretty much been going on now in theaters nationwide for over a month as this administration has gone into their, course of action, going through things. It's been so much of those two together, hand in hand. I think, frankly, one of the only times we've seen an event like this, that Donald Trump had been taking so many questions from the press, was when Elon Musk was with him just a couple of days ago around the Resolute desk. I think that talking to sources around the administration, there is a bit of frustration. I think the email that went out that Elon Musk called the pulse check email really got to the heart of the matter, which is who's running the day-to-day affairs with the cabinet? Is it Elon Musk with DOGE, or is it the cabinet secretaries? And that's going to be a real point of consternation. And the fact that so many of the cabinet secretaries had to say, hey, hold on a second, don't reply to this. Some of our work is confidential. We don't want it out there. Just give us a beat to figure this out. So that's really a bit of a growing pains right now in this administration. But I think so much of what Elon spoke about, right, that this is looking at non-essential employees, people who don't have strong performance. They're going to do it again potentially. And saying right there in front of not just the media, but the cabinet that called it into question, hey, I did this at the direction of the commander-in-chief. I did this at the direction of Donald Trump. So almost making it known to everyone, hey, if anybody's got a problem with this, go to the president.
And the president did seem to try to downplay any controversy there, saying, for example, Marco Rubio, who heads the State Department, obviously has people working on confidential things. So he said, hey, wait a minute, I can't have my people necessarily responding to these emails. And the president said, and we understand that and we're working with that. So he seemed to try to paint a picture of maybe some growing pains, but we're all working together here. It's all copacetic. But I also found interesting, Jay, Musk sort of making the case here that these cuts are needed, he says, to save the country from going bankrupt, point blank. I know you've been speaking with lawmakers who've been getting an earful from their constituents about DOGE. So how much support is there for Elon Musk's cuts in Congress?
I think in general, the Republican lawmakers we talk to say that they are in lockstep behind what Elon Musk is doing. Some have said they view it as a long time coming, that they've long supported this kind of overhaul of the federal government. And the more conservative of the member you find, the more they're likely to be in line with that thinking. But we have heard from some Republicans, as you mentioned, who went back to their districts last week when the House was on recess, and they got embroiled in these fiery town halls where various constituents said they had serious problems with Elon Musk, serious problems with DOGE, et cetera. And some of those members came back here to the Hill saying they want more clarity. They want more compassion, was the word that some of them used, in this process of how Elon Musk and DOGE are carrying out these firings. And some of these members have said that they weren't necessarily moved by those protests. Speaker Mike Johnson called those protests a quote-unquote ambush. But this full-throated endorsement, to Karen's point, that we just saw President Trump give Elon Musk and DOGE put some of these Republicans in a bit of a hard place because they have constituents in their various districts, some of whom are federal employees that have lost their jobs, that are demonstrating against DOGE. And on the other side, they have to demonstrate loyalty here to President Trump, who has fully thrown his support behind Elon Musk and DOGE. And we've yet to see how these members are going to fully walk that tightrope, Diane.
All right, Jay O'Brien, Catherine Falders, Karen Travers, John Santucci, thank you all. And we will have continuing updates right here on ABC News Live throughout the day. Thanks for joining us. I'm Diane Macedo. We have a lot more news for you right after this break. Stay with us.